We've got a pretty good sized tomato planting this summer, and we're going to train them both up on trellises, but we have two different kinds. This one is a cattle panel, and it's just secured in the ground with some T-posts. And all we'll do to train the plants is break off suckers in the lower part and weave the top up through the panel. And the way you weave the top in is just carefully take some foliage and train it up through there. Got one back here we'll do the same way with. And just check this every few days as the tomato grows. Now, in order to make it grow up the trellis nicely, we need to break off some suckers. We have one here that's gotten away from us. And the suckers you identify as those vigorous shoots that are coming out just above a cluster or a grouping of leaves. And you want to remove all the suckers up to the first flower cluster. So we'll snap this one off, and they should snap off fairly easily. There's one back here. There's a little one starting there. One here. Got one right there. One right there. And one more right there. And just snap that off. Part of the reason we do this, we've got one more there. Part of the reason we do this is that it helps the airflow around the base of the tomato plant. A lot of tomato diseases get started by mud splashing up on the plant. So we break the suckers off. That's that much less mud that can splash on, that much less foliage that'll have mud splashing on it. Put mulch around the base of it. And also have plenty of air movement to prevent disease. Now I'll go down and do the whole row this way up to that first flower cluster, and the plants will tend to grow much more upright that way also. Now over here we've already gone through and removed suckers, and this system is going to be what we call the stake and weave method. And a lot of commercial tomato growers use this method. It's very easy. It's much easier than using tomato cages, for instance, and it holds the plants up well. Plus it's cheaper than the cattle panel system. There are several things you can use for your stakes. We have in orange metal T-posts. They're very durable. A lot of people will buy 4.5-foot tomato stakes from a lumber yard. They're usually about 1.5 by 1.5 inches, or 1 by 1 inch. They'll pound that into the ground about 12 inches and have about 3.5 feet left to grow their tomatoes on. Works real well. Something some commercial growers in Oklahoma are switching to this year, because it's even more durable, is rebar that is used in concrete work. Now they'll cut it to a much longer length than this, of course. They'll use about a 5 or 6 foot piece, hammer that in the ground. The nice thing about it versus wood is that it doesn't tend to warp. Also, it has little ridges up and down the side, and that might help hold the string a little better. Either way, they'll work just fine. Now the next step is to use some string that doesn't tend to stretch in the weather. This is a polyester type of twine, works real well. If you use a jute type twine, it may tend to stretch or sag as it gets wet. And all you do is weave this between the plants. I have these posts or stakes spaced one between every 2 tomato plants. What we'll do is run this course about 8 inches off the ground around each plant. And when we get to the back here, I'll wrap it around the post and come back the other direction. And that second wrap is what will help hold it securely in place. And what some people do to make the string come out easier is they'll put a spool of string around their belt or belt loop, and then they'll take a broom handle and put a hole in either end and use that as sort of a guide for the string to come along. You can find lots of ways to streamline this operation. Commercial people do it much faster than this. You want to make sure when you're doing this that you keep the string very tight It's a good idea occasionally to do an extra wrap around the pole to hold it in place. And there we are at the end. Now in a few days I'll come back and do the second course of string about 10 inches up after the tomatoes have grown a little better. That helps get them up off the ground, and we'll keep adding courses of string about every 8 to 10 inches through the summer to keep these vertical. They'll be very easy to pick, much more easy than if they were in tomato cages, and the stakes are a lot less of a storage problem than cages would be. I'm going to tie this off, and then I'll meet you over in the fruit orchard. We have some limbs to spread to try to train our trees to be a little bit stronger as they bear fruit loads in future years.